We'll go to that. Yeah.
Okay. This proposal is an application by Heber Light Power and Rocky Mountain Power. It's a substantial upgrade to their facilities in some locations, new alignments in other locations, upgrading of existing alignments. I wanted to point out before I get started, though, that you have in front of you a petition signed by some 983 people. Also, we received 6 emails in opposition to the proposal that you have copies of as well. There's kind of a cover letter with that petition as well that you can read. What we'll be discussing tonight is seeing on social media and some of the emails we've been getting, there's been kind of a misconception of what tonight's about a little bit, but I wanted to go through really quickly with my presentation and discuss previous approvals that have been granted on the line down Highway 40, the nature of the current conditional use application.
Can you speak up, please? Louder.
Sorry. Travis, can you see if we can turn that up?
Yeah.
We've got about 40 people out here that are interested.
Yeah.
You might need to open that cabinet. There might be a... So what I wanted to cover tonight were the previous approvals along Highway 40, the nature of the current conditional use application, the limitations that are placed on utility regulation by local jurisdictions, an overview of the proposal, recommended findings and conditions of the staff report, and then after that there will be a presentation by the applicant, then public comment. Obviously that's controlled by the Planning Commission, and then after that there's typically Planning Commission deliberation on the item. Back in 2014 there was approval for the existing power line along Highway 40, and that runs from the north, what we referred to as the North College access, down to Coyote Lane. There was a subsequent conditional use granted here on April 10th, 2014 that allowed Rocky Mountain Power to go from Coyote Lane to the Heber City boundary at about 800 north. So the work that you see going on the east side of Highway 40 has already been approved in a conditional use public hearing in 2014. And these are the lines that occurred because of that conditional use. I might make a note that when we had that public hearing and I put public notice signs along Highway 40, only one person showed up. So this is actually good to see this. So let me tell you, to inform the public and to reiterate to the Planning Commission what a conditional use is. A conditional use is approved by the Planning Commission. This is not a recommendation to the County Council. This is not a height variance. I understand that Heber City, for their approvals and their jurisdiction, will be going through a height variance hearing. The intent of a use being considered conditional is for the Planning Commission to mitigate as much as possible negative impacts of the proposal. By the code listing power lines as a conditional use, the legislative body has made a determination that power lines are appropriate in the valley but may require conditions to mitigate negative effects. And then lastly, the last bold statement there, appeals of decisions by the Planning Commission go to the Board of Adjustment, whether it's a positive approval or a negative approval.
Doug, it's not coming up there at all. I don't know if you...
not the first phase. Sorry about that.
Go back.
Okay, I thought I covered that, didn't I?
You did.
Okay. So here we are. Okay, this is from our land use code 162306. It's general standards and findings that are required. The county shall not issue a conditional use permit unless the issuing department or commission finds. There's 7 of these items. I'm just going to go through them real quickly. Number 1, the application complies with all the requirements of this title. Number 2, the use will be compatible with surrounding structures in use, location, scale, mass, design, and circulation. Number 3, the visual or safety impacts caused by the proposed use can be adequately mitigated with conditions. Number 4, the use is consistent with the Wasatch County General Plan. Number 5, all issues of lighting, parking, the location and nature of the proposed use, the character of the surrounding development, the traffic capacities of adjacent and collector streets, the environmental factors such as drainage, erosion, soil stability, wildlife impacts, dust, odor, noise, and vibrations have been adequately mitigated through conditions. Number 6, the use will not place an unreasonable financial burden on the county or place significant impacts on the county or surrounding properties without adequate mitigation of those impacts. And number 7, the use will not adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the residents and visitors of Wasatch County. That's a very difficult, those are very difficult to satisfy in a situation like this. Now, along with that, the state has adopted code regarding what a municipality, a local government, can do and require for public utilities. So this is State Code Section 5414-201, conditions on siting of facilities by local governments. So what it essentially says is, if this body places a requirement on a public utility that increases the costs of installation above what that proposed alignment or the way they're going to install the utility, that municipality has to pay that cost over that base requirement. Along with that, there is a state code that sets up a utility facility review board. And if, for example, this body denied this application tonight and it was appealed to the Board of Adjustment, it could go to the Utility Facility Review Board that could overturn the local government's decision. So you have a difficult decision tonight. I guess that's the bottom line. This is a snapshot of the proposal. And then I plan on going through each segment individually and showing Google Street Views and identifying what the impacts are there. So, real quickly, this first segment goes from below the dam down to this North College Way access. So this is where the new pole line starts up and runs towards Heber City. Currently there's 2 lines, 2 parallel lines, one for Heber Light and Power, one for Rocky Mountain Power, that runs down through here. Right up here is their substation. So that's segment 1. You come down here going to Heber City, and Heber City will have their own regulations and public meetings, I'm assuming, for this portion. Then we get into the bypass alignment here. Then we go back into Heber City here. for their jurisdictional regulations. Then back into the county on 650 South. That church that we had in the previous slide is right in here. Go down by the sewer farm and across to Highway 113. And then we go into Midway City boundaries. We go up Ward's Lane right here. Majority of Ward's Lane has been annexed into Midway City, and the asphalt portion is all in Midway City. Once you get to the dirt portion, it's county again. And we'll head west on Ward's Lane and then north up to the substation. There's actually a Heber Light Power substation and a Rocky Mountain Power substation up there. This is the cemetery. So, segments 1 and 2, as I mentioned, there's currently 2 lines that are parallel that run through there. The idea would be that you do 1 line and co-locate those. It's proposed to go into Highway 32 and the UDOT right-of-way, out to Highway 40 and the UDOT right-of-way. Proposed alignment at the intersection, in staff's opinion, was the least preferable alternative from an aesthetic standpoint. Is that not? Good. You're looking at me like it wasn't working. We talked with the applicant initially about putting it higher up on the hill so it wasn't in the right-of-way. I know they've talked with the property owner there. It doesn't appear that they've come to any resolution on that. This segment runs for 1.6 miles in length. The applicants state that the segment would be comprised of 2/3 of the poles being wood and 1/3 being steel, and they would be placed approximately 300-foot intervals. Typical height would be between 75 and 90 feet, and that's for tangent poles, meaning poles that are running in a straight line. If there's an angle or a corner, then the poles could be between 90 and 110 feet. The existing poles are approximately 45 feet tall. So there again, that's the alignment proposed. And it runs down to that North College Way dirt road where the alignment that was approved in 2014 starts. So these are pictures along Old Highway 40, the road that goes to the base of the dam. You can see the 2 parallel lines. You can see where they've upgraded one set of lines, and we still have the older set of lines that run parallel. Those will all be co-located. This is coming out onto Highway 32, looking southwest. You can see the lines departing. This is getting closer to the intersection of 40 and 32. Here we are looking southeast at the intersection. This is me doing a terrible job at photoshopping in some poles. But I have no idea if these are to scale at all. So I wanted to kind of give you a representation of what that could look like. That's looking kind of northeast towards Old Highway 40. Segment 2, if you're familiar with the retaining wall on Highway 40, so that would be coming down and tying into the existing line. That's where that segments 1 and 2 would terminate right there at that pole. So this is the North College Way. Segment 3, it's approximately 1.6 miles of new line from 950 north to Highway 40, which is essentially west of the Heber City boundary. And it would run from there along the bypass route to Highway 113. Typical height is 75 to 90 feet for tangent poles and 90 to 110 feet for angles. Runs along the north side of the bypass on the portion of the bypass that runs east-west. and on the west side of the bypass on the portion that runs north-south. Here's the proposed alignment, and this is our bypass map. So segment 4, this is so the old segment 3 runs here through the North Fields area along the bypass route, and then we come into Heber City. This is the church that we pointed out earlier. So all this is Heber City jurisdiction. The county takes up right here. And it runs west through the sewer farm out to Highway 113. So this is the city portion on the corner of Southfield and 650 South. Continuing west. This jumps through that whole sewer farm area, and this is looking at 113, the intersection of 113, looking east. So that would be John Price's home there on the left. And we're in Midway City now. So segment 5, we've jumped to Ward's Lane essentially. And the proposal there is to replace and upgrade a half mile of existing lines from the dirt portion of Ward's Lane and 6th West to the applicant's Midway substation. So the existing height of the poles are between 50 and 70 feet, and the typical proposed heights would be, this has a typo in it, typical height of 75 to 90 feet, and that would be for the replacement poles, and 90 to 110 feet for angles. Along with this, there'd be an expansion of the Rocky Mountain Power substation, which is the western substation. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. It's about a 3/4 acre expansion, 150 feet to the south. So this is looking west on Ward's Lane. This portion of the asphalt road is in Midway City. You can see the existing lines, and then we get to the portion where it goes to dirt road, approximately 1,550 feet, where it becomes county again, and this body's jurisdiction. You can see the lines to your left, and then the arrow on the right side of the screen, where the power line goes through the field and up to the substations. And here is the cemetery and the substation. This closest substation is the the Heber Line Power Substation, and the further one to the west is the Rocky Mountain Power Substation. So this shows the expansion to the left of the Rocky Mountain Power Substation. That is, possible findings. According to the applicants, this upgrade and new lines are essential to provide reliable power to the Heber Valley. Due to the preliminary nature of the proposal, meaning the engineering has not been completed, it's hard to detail the exact heights and materials of the poles, so that's why we've got a range between 75 and 90 feet on these. Some of the alignments proposed by the applicant is not the preferred alignment of the planning staff. The Planning Commission should have enough detail to understand what impacts will be and feel comfortable that the least obtrusive feasible options have been used. The applicant has the burden of providing the information necessary for the Planning Commission to make an informed decision. Pole heights in most locations will increase from a height of 50 to 70 feet to a height of 75 to 90 feet, with endpoints and corners being 90 to 110 feet, with two exceptions at the Provo River tap next to the sewer plant at approximately 135 feet, and the fish hatchery crossing at approximately 120 feet. Location of overhead power lines are generally located parallel to existing transportation corridors. The proposed location will increase visual impacts on neighboring properties. The proposal is a conditional use, and impacts of this should, as much as possible, be mitigated with conditions. And lastly, this proposal will accommodate future needs and eliminates the need for a second parallel line. So with that, let me just go through the conditions really quick, and then I'm done, unless there's questions. But the recommended conditions of approval would be that the power poles should be as low as possible, yet still be able to accommodate the power line and separation requirements. B, all poles should be either wood or self-weathering steel. C, the maximum height limit is 110 feet on corner and end poles, and 90 feet on all other poles. And then there'd be the exceptions for the Cobble River crossings. The wire use shall be non-spectral or low reflective to reduce visual impact of the lines. E, cross arms shall be wood, earth tone fiberglass, or self-weathering steel. F, in all areas where two lines exist, applicants shall co-locate lines. G, location of poles through the north fields will follow the northern and western boundary of the planned bypass corridor, and poles should be placed near fence lines if fences exist along the corridor boundary. H, pole spans shall be as long as possible while maintaining the pole height limitations. And lastly, I, wood poles shall be used where feasible and efficient if determined to be of less impact than steel poles as determined by the planning. Questions?
Thank you, Doug. Questions for Doug?
Do we have,
Go ahead.
do we have an indication of where the staff prefers this to go?
You know, a lot of these run through existing corridors, and while it's going to be an added impact to go the higher, and we feel like where there's an existing corridor that should be utilized. Granted, if we all had our druthers, it'd be underground. But as I said, I think if we required that, we'd have to pick up the cost. I think the big impact to visitors of the valley and everyone who drives on Highway 40, we have 25,000 ADT that come in and out of the valley through there at that intersection, would be that those poles be located up onto the hillside instead of right in the right-of-way at that intersection. And that's what we portrayed to Rocky Mountain Power, Beaver Lane Power when this discussion first started, was that that was probably the least attractive alternative to us.
Okay. Go ahead.
I asked this question in the pre-meeting, but as Rocky Mountain Power and Beaver Lane Power, have they done an alternative study on this? Looked at different alternative alignments?
Other than talking to the property owner at that southeast corner of 32 and Highway 40, I know they've been trying to work with that property owner, but other than that, I'm not aware of anything else.
Are you aware of any public involvement that the two entities have done with the public for the entire alignment?
You mean other public meetings other than this one? I don't know that there was any municipally sponsored public meetings. I know there were some meetings in Heber, but I'm not sure if that was done by concerned citizens.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Doug, did either Heber Light and Power or Rocky Mountain Power submit an application for conditional use?
Yes.
Did they use the standard form?
Yes.
So I'm going through the checklist on this, and did they complete everything? Did they submit everything that's in the checklist?
As far as I'm aware, they did. I think what you're referring to is, do they own all the alignment?
Yeah, so just based on personal experience recently applying for one, I know that I had to submit a title report in order to say I'm the right person that has the right to ask for this conditional use permit to build a barn on my property. And so what the checklist says is a preliminary title report showing title to the property vested in the applicant, encumbrances, covenants, easements, anything affecting title and all that stuff. And attach copies of any covenants or easement. This is a gigantic project, so I know that there's not one title report, there's not one easement. But do we actually know if they have the right to build where we're talking about approving a conditional use permit?
They don't through the North Fields, and this is kind of a chicken and egg thing. They don't want to purchase easements in the North Fields until they have some type of approval. So they don't control the property out there. As far as I'm aware, they haven't purchased easements. Anywhere where they've got an existing line, I would assume they've either got a prescriptive easement or a described easement.
Okay, but we don't know for sure if they actually have the rights all the way across. I mean, we can ask them when they talk about it. And what we're considering tonight is it only is the area that is within the territorial limits of the county.
Right.
So there's some broken spots in that continuous line that go to Heber City and Midway City. Do we know have they opined on this? Are they weighing in on this? Have they decided anything on this yet?
The little bit I know in talking with Heber City is that there will need to be a height variance by the Heber City, I'm not sure if it's Board of Adjustment. And I thought I heard their planner say that was scheduled for December 20th. 19th.
And that's a public hearing?
I talked to Midway City today, and they do not regulate power lines one way or another in their municipality. And
Could you
obviously,
speak up, please?
Sorry. In talking with Midway City today, they have no regulations in their code regarding power lines. So it doesn't state whether it's permitted or conditional. I'm not sure how they're going to handle that. They may hold a public hearing. I know they've got a new mayor. I'm not sure what they're going to do with that.
She's here.
Okay, is there any more discussion or questions for Doug?
When did this application get put in? When did we start talking about this? This just happened, or
Oh,
been
it's
going on for
probably
years?
been 6 weeks ago. We have a 6-week lead time when someone gets an application turned in. We check it to see if it's complete before we distribute it to the other departments for review. But it's 6 weeks prior to the planning commission meeting when they turn in their application.
Did they give notice to all the properties affected within 500 feet?
The applicant is required to provide self-addressed stamped envelopes that we put a letter in and send to the property owner. So we put the burden on the applicant to do the research and come up with the letters. In this case, it's within 500 feet from the power line.
Did they do that?
They did that. We sent the notice out. Now, invariably in a situation like this, there's going to be people that claim they didn't get notice. If that's a valid claim, then we send out, like I said, what the applicant sent.